What's going on, everyone? So, per Adrian Wojnarowski, the San Antonio Spurs are hiring New York Knicks player development coach Scott Keene as a head coach of the G League Austin Spurs, sources tell ESPN. So, this is very interesting, right? They are turning the New York Knicks player development coach into the head coach of the G League affiliate. Now, the reason I think this is interesting is because it further, in my opinion, further shows the shift that teams are taking for the league, right? The new CBA has really changed how teams are kind of approaching the the future of young players and talent, right? Like even the new CBA with second round picks and the way that they operate towards the cap now. And you know how like you're seeing all these second round picks starting to get these extended contracts and these 4-year deals and stuff because it's just cheap, just talent that you can keep on the roster long term. It doesn't impact the cap the way that it used to in the future, right? Like it's just there's so many different elements to the new CBA that teams you're really starting to see put an emphasis more on just player development, right? So much so that, again, you look at teams like the Los Angeles Lakers. All they've done is talk about how badly they want to develop programs and be the staple and the leader in development, right? Because there is this now incentive to really homegrown players and kind of almost like college. You think of college, right? Got kind of this like farm system where it's like, yeah, every year you have a handful of players that depart and then the next wave comes in, right? And that's what a lot of these teams are trying to do. A lot of these teams are trying to, develop and really put time, money, and energy and into just their young talent in the G leagues and on the two ways and on the roster and all that stuff, and try to just put them in better position to expedite their growth and development. Now, obviously, you're still going to have hits. Obviously, you're still going to have misses. Right? It comes with the game. There's always going to be guys that you have a lot of hope and promise for that they just don't pan out. And then there's always going to be that guy that you expect, this guy was a bust and he turns out to be a star, right? And you're just like, wow, that came out of left field, right? So it's the roller coaster that comes with just development and players and stuff, right? And so you're seeing the Spurs kind of taking a page out of that book, right? And another team that's really leaning, right? Like they didn't hire, a former assistant or, an assistant already on the G League team or whatever. No, they took a NBA player development coach and turned him into the G League head coach, which is the farm system in which you're growing, developing, and building your players to take that next step and that leap into the NBA, right? And look, the Spurs have several guys. I mean, even like their draft pick, right? Look at like Harrison Ingram. Right? He signed a two-way. He's going to be on that. They have other two-way guys. They have guys in the G League that, they're high on and pumped for and want to continue to grow and develop, right? Like, and you want to have the guys that are best in position at giving these young players the best chance and opportunity, right? Now, look, the Spurs have always been a team that really develops guys and grows guys, right? Like, using the Lakers again as an example. Lakers don't really have a history of really growing and developing players. I'm not saying that they never have. I mean, you look at guys like Kobe Bryant was there start to finish, right? Like, they've had guys, Magic Johnson, things like that. But, the Lakers have a history of like, hey, take these young guys, trade them, and go get the star, right? Like, Pau Gasol, right? Anthony Davis, right? They sold all their young players to go get AD, and they won a championship because of it. But you look at the Spurs, with Duncan and Parker and Robinson and, Manu and, now you got Victor and, Stephon Castle and Devin Vassell and all these guys that you're growing and developing and building, right? So the Spurs have always been a good organization to just grow, develop, and build these types of players. And, you can tell that it looks like they're more committed to it than ever, which they should be. again, there is this incentive now with the new league rules and just the way that you can structure contracts and all that stuff, right? Like, the second apron is, teams are looking at it as like a death sentence, right? The second apron is terrifying to a lot of these teams. And so, you need this cheap, young talent that can come in and play a role. Ideally be a starting level or, be a real rotation piece. And, when they eventually end up fading out or, they end up leaving for better opportunity or you trade them or whatever, or it's time for them to get paid and they're just better than what you can afford to pay them because of the new CBA, right? Well, you have that next wave that can come in. Right? You have that next group of guys that can come in that you can now, okay, right? Because look, the Spurs, eventually you're going to have to pay Victor Wembanyama, 40 to 50 million a year, right? That new TV deal's coming out soon. And when that comes out, you're talking, it's going to be pretty hefty, right? So you're talking about a guy that's going to be getting 50 million a year and it's just going to make things a lot more difficult. It's one of the reasons I've even talked about, I think the Spurs should push harder to kind of push their chips in to just go get better talent. But, we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, I don't think there's anything available right now. But if that player does become available, I do think that there is an incentive while Victor is so cheap. But, you look at, that, and it's like, oh man, like you need as much cheap young talent as possible. You need to convert, a Juan Nunez into a real starting rotation level type of point guard, right? And Harrison Ingram, you need to turn into a legit 3 and D Wayne, right? And they, in my opinion, again, have made that attempt and that effort. They got a legit, one of the better development guys to now coach their G League affiliate to better put their young talent in position to succeed and eventually move up into the actual NBA roster. And look, there is an argument to be made that the people that'll benefit more than anybody from the new CBA and things like that, because it's going to hurt a lot of people. Like the days of like the 30 million contracts and stuff are gone, right? A lot of those guys, and it'll probably take a couple of years to get there, but a lot of guys are going to be, if you're not a top 2 player on a championship contender, you're not getting 40 plus million, right? So the days of just like giving guys big hefty contracts, it's over, right? It's done. Right? You look at a guy like Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is probably going to be the first casualty in that regard. No one's going to pay him 40 plus million. He'll probably get 20 to 25 million. And he's worth probably 30 million. Right? Like the days of those like mid-tier, like those $18 million contracts are probably gone. Right? Like it's probably going to be, if you're not a $40 million guy, you're like a $15 to $20 million guy. Right? Like that's just kind of where it's at. So the players that are going to benefit more than anything are those guys that are fringe NBA players, right? The guys that are kind of on the fence where it's like, this guy has a lot of potential, but let's see if he can kind of hone it, right? And you're going to have teams now putting more effort into seeing that guy reach that potential, where it's kind of like, let's just, put a little time in him, right? Let's see how he does. Where now I think it'll be like, no, we need to pump all our resources into these young guys. So I think that the young player coming in that is not projected to be the star or anything like that, right? The guy that, the two-way guy, the second round pick, right? The late first round pick, like those guys I think are going to benefit the most, because you're going to have a lot of these teams working harder than ever before to make them something, because they need him to be the best player that he can possibly be, because he's going to be cheap for a while, talented and good. And now you can put yourself in a position to where, you got that guy for 8 years minimum, right? Like it's a big difference. So, again, I think the Spurs are another team to kind of head in that direction. and really kind of show like, hey, they're positioning themselves better for just player development. I think Keene is really going to do a good job in that regard. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like this hiring? Do you think that Keene's going to do a great job with the G League affiliate? Do you think that, yeah, this further shows that the Spurs are kind of positioning themselves for just player development, growth, development? I think that the new CBA really impacts that. Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I would love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.